Someone can do your tasks, but can they replace the relief people feel around you? You think you become valuable by doing more, by staying late, by saying yes faster. But that is not what makes you hard to replace. Most people get this wrong, and it costs them quietly. Here is the rule. You become hard to replace when you reduce uncertainty. Not for yourself, for everyone around you. And that sounds simple, but the way you do it changes everything. Picture a morning meeting. Two people give updates. One lists what they did. The other says what is now safe, what is at risk, and what happens next. Notice the difference. One reports, one stabilizes, and that is where the real advantage begins. First, you handle the small mess before it grows. A file is missing. A client email is unclear. A teammate looks stuck but stays polite. You do not wait for it to explode. You ask one clean question. You close one loose end. Psychologically, people fear open loops. They feel tension, even if they smile. If you ignore this, you become background noise. And because of that, you start getting less trust. Second, you give options, not problems. You walk to your manager with an issue. Most people bring heat. You bring two paths. One is faster, one is safer. You name the trade-off and the cost. This doesn't look like confidence. It looks like calm thinking. If you ignore this, you become a messenger of stress, and then people begin to avoid you. Third, you speak early, not loudly. You notice a delay, you don't hide it. You send one short message before someone asks. Here is what changed. Here is the new plan. That single sentence buys peace. But there's another sign most people miss. Silence is not always maturity. Sometimes it is fear wearing a suit. If you ignore this, you become unpredictable. And unpredictable people get replaced first. Fourth, you protect other people's attention. You learn what matters to them. You filter noise. You don't forward 5 threads. You send one summary, 3 bullets, one decision. This doesn't look like hard work. It looks like respect. If you ignore this, you become expensive to manage. And because of that, you stay a good worker, not a key one. Fifth, you own the outcome, not the role. The task is yours, even when it spreads. You coordinate, you clarify, you follow up without drama. You don't say, I did my part. You say, it's done, and here is proof. Trust is the real job. That's a punchline people learn too late. If you ignore this, you become a hand, not a mind, and hands are easy to replace. Sixth, you build a trail that survives you. You leave notes that make sense. You name files cleanly. You write the next step down. Not to show off, to remove friction for the team. Most people keep knowledge as leverage. It doesn't look like power. It looks like insecurity. If you ignore this, your value stays invisible, and invisible value never gets defended. Here's the midpoint twist. Being irreplaceable is not being needed. It is being trusted. Seventh, you stay steady when things get tense. A call gets sharp. A deadline shifts. Someone blames the wrong person. You don't perform emotions. You ask for facts. You lower the temperature. Calm competence is rare. That is another punch sentence. If you ignore this, you become part of the chaos. And then your presence stops feeling safe. Eighth, you take responsibility for the boring parts, the checklist, the confirmations, the "did you receive this?" the last 10%. Most people chase visible moments, but replacement happens in the invisible gaps. If you ignore this, your work creates cleanup for others. And the moment you create cleanup, you become optional. And there's a final piece that locks it in. You make your promises small, Then unbreakable. If you say, I'll send it today, it arrives today. No excuses. No disappearing. People stop tracking you. That is what they secretly want. Busy is replaceable. Dependable is rare. If you ignore this, you need constant reminders. And because of that, you train others not to rely on you. And here's the quiet reward. People start asking for your judgment, not your effort. Soon, they stop checking. Now watch what this rule does. When you reduce uncertainty, people relax. They stop double-checking. They stop hovering. They stop preparing for surprises. And that is the real product you deliver. Not effort, not talent, relief. So the next time you ask what makes you valuable, don't look at your workload. Look at the room after you speak. Is it clearer? Is it calmer? Is someone's next step obvious? Because if it is, you are not just helpful, you are hard to replace. At the start, I asked a quiet question. Someone can do your tasks, but can they replace the relief people feel around you? When you become the person who removes uncertainty, you stop fighting to matter. You simply become the calm that remains.